Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining this session right around lunchtime. I know it's not the best time, but I'll try to cut it a little short so we don't have to starve. Um, so I want to show you today something really new. I just started presenting this session a few weeks ago. It's basically showing you the latest stuff in terms of what external tools can do to optimize Power BI models and reports. My name is Gregor Brunner. I'm the founder of a consulting company in Switzerland. I've been working with Power BI for a long time. We mostly work in the German-speaking areas, Switzerland, Austria, and Germany. So we mostly do development and consulting. And we built a popular external tool called Measure Killer. And that's also most of what I'm going to show today. So what can you expect from this session? We will quickly, at the beginning, take a look at shared datasets. What is a shared dataset? How does it work? How does it fit into the Power BI ecosystem? And then we will look at this new and also easy way that I'm proposing to optimize a model. So here I have a little graphic from Microsoft. So this golden data set in the middle, it's not very nice, right? But this is the official symbol of a semantic model now in the Power BI service. They just changed this some time ago. And you can see it's the center of everything. And then there is a live connection basically from this model to the reports. The reports are pulling data from that model via live connection. And it can be a Power BI report, like the ones on the top right, or also like paginated reports. It basically means we have a centralized model that we use for many things. Even somebody could have Power BI desktop on their computer open and then load data from that model locally, and the report is not in the service yet. It's just different use cases. But that's what I mean by shared dataset. So the dataset doesn't only exist for one report, but it's basically reused for many reports. By the way, if you have any questions, even though the light is pretty strong, I think I can see, and we have helpers here, they can hand you the microphone, and then you can ask your questions. I think it's best to ask questions just whenever they come up, because we forget stuff, right? So, and yeah, we're not that many people, so I guess we have enough time also to answer all the questions. If not, I'm also here after the session. You can ask me then. So, what is this new way, right? So, generally, if we think about performance optimization, it's a complex topic. You have to know a lot of things to optimize a model. It's time intensive. And in my case, we can have a quick win, I would say, by identifying everything that is currently unused. So that means all the columns and measures in this centralized model, some of them are not used anywhere. And right now, you have no idea what is used and what is unused. So with external tools, we can find out. We can even see where exactly those are used across multiple reports. And then we can also semi-automatically clean up that model. So it will help us to basically to get rid of the stuff that is not needed anywhere or is currently not in use in any of the reports. And the benefit of this, of course, is a smaller, better organized model. So by that I mean, if you before had 500 measures, 300 of those are not used, you only have 200 left, everything is more organized, and it's not such a mess. But most importantly, by removing unused columns, you can speed up your models and reports. So the effect that has really depends, but in a lot of cases, more than 50% of the size of the model is completely unused, and nobody ever knew that. And it could be some really, really heavy columns that were never used anywhere. And by that, you can just quickly speed up everything. And you don't need to know so much, actually. You just take it out and go with that. So there are two approaches I'm going to show today. Approach number one is we can download everything from the Power BI service. So we have a model in the Power BI service. Reports are connected to that model in the Power BI service. And then we're going to download those to our computer because we will then use Power BI Desktop in combination with the free version of Measure Killer. And then we can analyze all of that on our machine. And everything is done offline or locally. And then the second one, if we have time at the end, I'm also going to show you if you cannot download it, because that's a little more tricky. Especially a lot of times, maybe you don't have access to the data set. It has been modified by the XMLA endpoint. For whatever reason, the model cannot be downloaded, or maybe some of the reports that have been built in the Power BI service cannot download it. For that, we need some advanced tools. So in that case, we can use the Tabular Editor 3 and Measure Killer in the paid version. And that is all done online. So there, I don't even need to open Power BI Desktop at all. But like I said, we just take a look at this at the end if there's time. So let's dive into it. So I'm going to do everything today on a VM because I prepared a really big data set for this with a couple of gigabytes. And I experienced this morning that the Wi-Fi is really slow. So it took forever to download and upload stuff. So now I'm doing it on an Azure VM, which is much faster. So let's see how that goes. You can see now, this is my model, right? The model I'm going to show today is called IMDb dataset. So this has millions of movies, the movie database, right? It's a big model. And we have a couple of reports connected to that. I'm just going to show you one report so you have an idea of what we're dealing with. So this is just showing some movie ratings over time on top of this IMDb data. We can see the average ratings, how many movies have which ratings, things like that. And down here, we just see the number of movies that is just exploding after the year 2000. For some reason, they just, I don't know, Hollywood went crazy. And then here, it's dropping because this is basically into the future. So, I don't know, some movies are already planned up until 2031. So that's why it's just collapsing here. But anyway, it's just showing some stuff. We have a couple of other reports. And what we need to do is we need to download all those reports to our computer in case we don't have those files. So I already did that, obviously. So I have the data set here. You can see this is 941 megabytes in compressed size. Uncompressed, I think it's a couple of gigabytes. But the PBIX file is almost 1 gigabyte, so it's pretty big. And then I have the thin files, basically all the reports that are connected via live connection to this model. I also have them downloaded on my computer. So I open up the data set. Even you can see there is one page here, somebody built it. It doesn't really matter. But you can see, yeah, in our data set, we have a couple of measures, we have some tables, and this is what we want to clean up in combination with all the reports that it's connected with in the Power BI service. So now let me open up Measure Killer. Who likes dark mode? Do we have hands for pro dark mode and against dark mode? So, okay, so I think it's around 50-50. So I'm gonna let's go for dark mode because it's pretty cool, right? So I'm gonna run it now. It has different modes, but it doesn't really matter. it just, what I'm running here is basically this shared data set locally. First thing I need to do is I need to select the data set, and it has to be open on Power BI, in Power BI right now. So since it is open, it just pre-selected the file. I can click on next. So it works like other external tools. You have Power BI open, it connects to it, and that's it. Then there is a question here, would you like to add the dataset pages? So the tool works a little different than other tools. Most tools, they only analyze the model, the relationships, measures, those dependencies. But since we want to make sure none of the reports are breaking down, we also need to look at the visuals, right? Something could be used in a conditional formatting somewhere. And there's no tools besides Measure Killer that are actually doing that. So that's why it's also asking if it should include basically what I have in the data set here as part of the analysis. If I don't care if the data set will break down, I can say no. But in my case, I just want to say yes because I want this visual to survive basically when I'm done removing stuff. Next, I need to select the file itself. That's why I said it's also looking into the visuals and all this, and this is stored inside the PBIX file. That's why we also need to select that. But it's a prompt, and it basically pre-selects the last open file, which it assumes is the one we want to work with. So now I click next, and now basically we come to the main window. You can see that this the data set is pre-selected here, and now I can add my reports. So I have to add on top of the data set, which we already gave the tool. Now I can add the reports. Because it doesn't know what's going on in the Power BI service, it doesn't do anything there, I have to put everything in there, right? So I can just drag and drop all those reports I downloaded where I know that they're connected to this model and drag and drop them here. And now I click on run. And now it's doing its magic, and we're gonna see what this means. So, a lot of information, right? But let's look at the bottom left first. You can see here, it's telling me 49% of the model is used and 51% is unused. So basically, I can cut the model down to half its size just by removing stuff that I currently don't need anyway. So that's a very, very interesting information that we get right away. We also see this is used by unused. I'm going to explain this after. We can see how many local date tables we have, which is also a problem for performance especially. We can see how many unused measures and columns, what kind of relationships. But in this main table here, you can see it is sorted by the size. So everything, every row here is either a column, a calculated column, or a measure. It could also be a report level measure, as we can see down here. And I will explain everything in more detail. But it's sorted by the size. So I can see the most costly column, this surrogate key column, whatever, it has 575 megabytes and it's not used anywhere. So I just see here immediately the red ones are the ones that are unused, right? And then the other ones are used. And then the cool thing is I can open those up. So I can see, for example, this column here, n constant column. I can see it's in the people table, part of the data set, obviously. I can open it up, and then I can see where it's used. So I can see it's used in an artifact. Actually, it's used in the calculated column. Okay. So this is also red here because this itself is unused. And then I can see also it's used in a relationship, in an active relationship, so we also differentiate between active and inactive, and it's a many-to-one relationship. Maybe let's look at something different. I can sort here by the number of uses. So I can see now that, for example, my decade, I have a decade calculated column in my model, and it's used 8 times. It's used 4 times in visuals. Cool. I can see exactly which visuals those are. I can even see, here it says pivot table, right? So This is just the type of the visual, but if the visual has a title in the report, it will show me the title, like here, average rating by decade. And I can see on which page it is of which report. So I can see the pivot table is, the decade is used in a pivot table on page 1 in my runtime analysis report. So it tracks exactly where in all the reports that we added here, things are used. And what does it check generally? So it checks for stuff that is used in visuals, in conditional formatting, basically anywhere in the report, but it also checks the model, relationships, calculated columns, measures. It even checks Power Query. So the goal of this tool is really to check everywhere so that when it tells you it's not used, you can remove something without having any impact on your reports or the model itself. So that's why it needs to check everywhere. It's not perfect. There's still some very, very fringe cases that we find from time to time, but it has been, yeah, we have been working on this for almost 2 years, and we got a lot of feedback also from the community, so it's getting better and better. Yeah, so basically, the whole aspiration is to have everything included here, and give a good overview of what's happening in our reports and model. Any questions so far? I should zoom in. Okay. Let me try with the magnifier. Okay. Seems like, I guess here it's big enough. Yeah. So now since I'm using a VM, this will be a mess, I think. This is gonna be very, very laggy. I could zoom in. Yeah. Not sure. It's fine. Yeah. Well, let's hope so. There was also one question in the audience. Sorry. Maybe you can, yeah, just please pass him the microphone.
You said it's not perfect. Do you know of kind of situations where a report can actually break if you remove all the unused marked columns? Or
Yes.
Yeah.
So there is on the website. So the website is measurekiller.com. There's some limitations there. So for example, here are the limitations. Yeah, the things that we are aware of course. I mean, there might also be something that we're not aware of, but for example, if you copy paste pages or even reports and then change stuff, some of the things in the report layout, they don't update. So that can create false references. So if you do a lot of copy paste among the pages, that could lead to problems. Also here it says, right, something, if you're only doing a count rows on a table, because count rows needs a table as an input, if you're only doing that and the table is not used anywhere else, it will say that the table is unused because it doesn't track the count rows, because the count rows needs a table and we only look at where columns are used. So if there's a table reference, for example, and everything else is not used anywhere, it will say you don't need that table, even though the count rows might break down then, you know. Yeah. Also, like here it says default title. So this is, yeah, specific stuff, but it's good to know the limitations as well, for sure. Any other questions so far?
If you have a column in the fact table which is not referenced but in place to ensure that you have unique rows, does that get detected as unused?
So if it's not going to be used, right, because it's not referenced anywhere. But so it depends. How would you you would probably do a count or whatever on that column, Or why would you need that column?
For example, for context transition to when you do those type of calculations.
So if the column is referenced anywhere in any DAX measure, it will say it's used. But if you don't, if it's just something else, or you, I don't know, you do a count rows or something, no, then it's not used. Yeah.
Okay.
So besides the visuals, it also checks the filters, right? You can have visual, page level, or report level filters. Those are shown here. Also something maybe that is interesting is if you right-click on one of those artifacts in the used tree, you can also get some metadata here. So for example, this is the messy JSON we have to deal with. And you can, for example, you can double check, okay, is this column really used, where it's referenced for the people who might need this. We're also exposing that. But then, for example, other measures, you can just see, okay, I'm just gonna expand some of them and see, actually you can also search. So we can check if something is used in Power Query as well. Seems like it's not. I can also search for the relationships. I can do a lot of things here, but generally it's split into used, unused, and then what is this yellow? The yellows is called used by unused, and this is, let me explain this quickly. So something could be used, but where it's used, you can see, remember this calculated column that we had? It's unused, right? But the H column is referenced in that calculated column. So once I will remove that calculated column, then those yellow ones will become unused themselves, because they're only used in something that is unused, and we want to clean everything up. That's why those yellow ones, basically, they're currently used, but once we remove the stuff that is completely unused, they themselves will become unused in the second round, basically. All right, so let's start cleaning this up, right? There's one more thing that we have here. We have like a table overview, because this could be a lot, right? Some people, they have thousands of columns and measures in a big model, and then maybe this table overview might be more handy. And you can see how much of the table is used, and then just open it up and you can see exactly, again, the columns. Because what could be, for example, is if only one, actually we have one here, I think. Yeah, so here everything is unused, and then we have one yellow. So basically this whole table is not needed if we start cleaning this up, because currently it's just referenced somewhere that is unused itself. But it could also be that this, just imagine this types column is actually used. So it would be green, right? But it could be that it's only used in a relationship. So I have the whole table unused, and then there's one column that is only used in a relationship. So then maybe you have to check yourself if you actually need that relationship. So even something that is used could be unnecessary in some cases. So there is some extra things we could do even on top of the things it suggests that is used. But that is up to you then to really decide, because it could be a bridge table or certain things that maybe you might need. So how do we remove stuff? So now it comes to the killing part. And you can see there are two tabs for that. One is for measures and calculated columns. Those can be removed by writing to the model directly. So just like executing a C# script in other tools, you can just remove those directly. And let me show you just how this works. So it's connected to this model here, right? So the measures that I'm gonna remove, and those are just those two, the first genre and types check, they will just disappear. So I'm just gonna go to kill all, and you can see now, boom, it's removing that, and they're already gone. So this is how all external tools work, basically. And some people might say, oh, that's really risky because no way back. Well, so first of all, it's always good to keep backups, right? And then also only once I save here, it actually makes this final, I would say. And there's also a restore functionality that I will show just after, where everything that was deleted from inside the tool, it will keep backups, and then you can restore it later on if you want to. But this message here is also interesting because we removed those 4 things, and now it's basically telling me that the ones that were yellow, those 2, I think it was 2 columns, now it's telling me, oh, now that you removed all the red ones, the yellow ones are now newly unused, and it's just telling me that. So we can go back now and we can see that, for example, this H column that was yellow before, now it's red because it was only used in something that is unused, and now itself, we don't need it anymore. So also something that is interesting is you can already see that it updated the output here, because before we had 50-50% used, unused, right? And now, because we removed this very heavy calculated column, we have more of the model used and less unused. So we're getting to, the goal is to get to 100% used, because that's the size of the model that we actually need. So we already went one step in that direction just by removing especially this calculated column, because measures don't have a size, right? Any questions? Back there, please.
You could have a lot of nested logic, measures on measures on measures, and
Yes.
You could have the unused, the yellow bit coming up again. It's a plan to get to so you can just hit one button and then it will just remove all the unused and all the yellow ones and all the way down, so you can just hit it once and everything will work.
This will come at some point, but right now you would just have to kill all multiple times. But it depends on how complex how complex your report is. The worst I've seen was a really old report I built myself where I didn't know any best practices yet, and I think I had to do it 3 or 4 times. So. Any other questions? All right, so that was measures and calculated columns, but what about the real columns, right? The Power Query columns. So for that, we cannot just remove them from the model. Those, in Power BI Desktop at least, we have to change the M code because everything else is not supported. Unless actually with Timdal, probably there's their way, and we're also working on that. So with the new model format, Timdal, there might be a way, or there is a way to do that, but currently with the PBIX, it's not possible yet. So how do we do that? So because we still have a lot of things that are unused, right? And those are all the columns. And also you can see report level measures. I mentioned those before. Those are measures people build on top of the centralized model only in that report. So if somebody is building a report on top of the model and then they need some other measures, they can add those measures in the report themselves. So then the measures will be part of the report. They're not going to be part of the centralized model because that doesn't make sense. So we can see those report level measures too. And you can see that they are in fact part of the reports. They're not part of the data set. They're part of this runtime analysis report or the best movies report. So we're not interested in removing those, but at least we can see them, and we can also right click here and we can see their DAX expression. So not only for those, but also for calculated columns and this kind of stuff, you can see the DAX expression here. So now let's remove the real columns, right? You can see that I have 4 tables to select, and this is basically all the tables in my model that have unused columns, and they're sorted by the size that I can save. So I can have, 500, 600, 700 megabytes. I can save 700 megabytes approximately. Actually, it's right here. I can save 700 megabytes by kicking those out. So since it's a big model and I'm pulling the data in from Power BI data flows, it will take some time. So let me just do this and then I will explain a little bit because we'll have to wait probably 2 minutes or something for this to finish loading. So The first is the people table. So what I do, I go into Power Query, I open up the people table, and what it does, it basically copies the old M code and just adds a step at the end. And that way, my table just gets more narrow. It takes out the columns that it doesn't need, right? So it's a very safe way because I can always remove this step, or especially, that's why I usually do remove other columns. I get this little icon here, and afterwards I can even add in columns that I took out. So all the unchecked ones, those are the ones we took out. So that's a good way, I think, to remove those. And I just got to copy paste this into all those queries. Let me just do this quickly. And then we'll apply the changes, and it will load that into Power BI Desktop. And this one, this one has everything unused now. So we can also see it here in the table view. Everything, all the columns are unused. So I can either do, it can still generate the remove columns, but it doesn't really make sense because it would just leave nothing. And the remove other columns, since it works the other way, it has nothing to select. That's why it's just throwing this info. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna delete the table entirely. I could also deactivate the load. It's really up to me. And then we're also gonna do basic info. Basic info. So we did basic info, we did title, principles, and people. You can see it, all of them have those steps at the end. And now I'm gonna apply those changes. Yeah, that's what I was struggling with today in the morning because 1 megabyte took like 10 seconds. And since it's a couple of gigabytes, it took forever. Yeah, most people only do a PowerPoint, but I thought it's more interesting to actually see some Power BI stuff. So the biggest query here has, I think, 2.5 gigabytes, so it will take some time for this to finish. In the meantime, we can, if we have any questions, I can, yes, please. You're saving me, because you're saving all of us, actually.
Is it? Yeah. So we have in our development process that we have to use Measure Killer before moving into production, which we are enforcing to the developers as well as the last step before going into production. Yes. To ensure that it has been run. Is it a way where we programmatically can check if there are unused things so we can build that into the CI/CD pipelines?
Yeah, that's a great point. So we know that this is obviously where it should be, right? It should be part of a professional deployment pipeline right before it goes into production. There should be one final check that kicks out or at least tells you that you have 35% unused. And then it's up to you what to really kick out and what not. We're working on that. Probably will take another 6 months for that. If we have time towards the end, I'm going to show the online version. That's not programmatic yet, but it's at least, it can write to the XMLA endpoint, and you don't need any Power BI desktop anymore. But that's a great point because I agree that this is exactly where something like this should be. I mean, there's nothing from Microsoft, so this is the best you have. And I think it should be it should be some kind of DevOps extension or something, yeah. So let's see how far we are. 1.5 gig, wow. That was a good question. Let me quickly show you this restore. So you see I have done the same thing over and over again today in testing. And this is what we just did, right? This is the 4 artifacts we removed. You can see I have a date timestamp, everything that was removed. My VM is called BI3. It was removed from here. So what we do actually in our team is we have a, I don't have it here, but we have a OneDrive folder where everybody puts their backups so that I can see even what other people are removing. So if you have a team and you want to work together with this, you can also put in a OneDrive folder here. And then everything will be in one place. And every time you remove something, it will create one backup with all the things that you have removed. All right. One other thing that is pretty cool, and this I think I've not seen anywhere, is this what-if analysis. What we get here is, what if I remove something? So it will tell you before how much you will be able to save. Let's look at this. We have the whole thing is basically the model and my reports, right? So I have the model, I have all my reports, and we put a size and a potential savings. So the potential savings means if you remove something, how much can you save? For the model, I mean, maybe for the relationships it could make sense, but I don't know if I want to remove those. But even here I can see all the columns that are used in that relationship and how heavy those columns are. So we even put a weight on a relationship, right? We also put weights on reports. So this report here is actually the table I have in the data set. Maybe I don't need that. It could be also something in that report. It could be a hidden page, right? Sometimes we have pages that are hidden just for testing. And if you go in there and you open it up and this hidden page has 200 megabytes, it means there's something that is only used on that page. And you will be able to save those 200 megabytes. In my case, it's just a little bit. You can see it's 27, 1.4% of the model. It's nothing. But if I open it up, I can see on this page, I have one visual, this table. I can basically go down this whole dependency tree, and then I see everything that is used or is needed, even if it's a filter or conditional formatting. I can see this is the title column and those three measures, and I open the measures and I see what is used in that measure. So I can really see which columns are end used to build that table visual, and it will tell me basically if it's only used there or not. The red means there's nothing that is only used there. Green means there's something that is only used there, and it's adding up the total size of those columns. All right. Yeah, that's just this what-if analysis. So you can also even check it on measures. So we're trying to put here, I guess, is all 0. So those measures are, there's no distinct, so everything that is used in those measures is also used somewhere else, so we cannot save anything by removing a measure. But if there was something green here, it would mean that if I remove this measure, I can save a certain space because the measure is only using a column that is not used anywhere else. Something like that, yeah. Okay, so so now this finished, and let's now see what happened. Actually, let me open it again. So I finished loading, and that's what we want, right? We want everything to keep working, but we want our file to get smaller and more efficient. So I'm gonna save here. Actually, let me first save. I'm gonna save here, and I have this copy. So before we had 941 megabytes, and now let's see how much we have now, because it will be around half, right? We had 50% that was unused before, and it takes a long time to save even those big files. I'm sure you know. But this will, all right, 10 minutes left. 10 minutes to launch, everyone. So 427 megabytes, right? That's what we cut it down to, just by removing everything that was not used in any of those reports or the model. So, yeah. And then, yeah, let me do that again. So I just open it up again. Since I closed it, I also have to drag and drop those files. But basically what we want is the 100% used, right? So in our process of cleaning it up, we want to get to 100% used, because that means the tool at least thinks there's no more room. But we know that something could also only be used once, and maybe it's a useless use, like what I said with the relationship, right? So for example, if you have something only used, something in a table where you only have one column used inside the table, maybe you can take a look at that column. Do you really need that column? Can you do something? Maybe because the rest of the table is not used, and then, yeah, especially columns and relationships are heavy usually. Okay, so since we have a few minutes left, any questions? Otherwise, we'll jump into the Power BI service quickly and I'll show you how this works without Power BI Desktop. Okay, so let's close this. Let me open Measure Killer again. So this is pretty advanced, right? Because it takes a lot of things to make this work. But so this is basically part of the paid version of Measure Killer, and then we also see how to clean it up. There we need Tabular Editor. So first thing I do now is I need to authenticate with my account. It's reading the workspaces I have access to in the Power BI service. Since we're doing also an XMLA connection on the model, it's only premium workspaces that I can select from. So in my case, what we had before, you can see I have a PPU workspace. It's called IMDb. So I'm going to select this IMDb workspace, and then I'm going to take the IMDb dataset. So exactly what we did offline, I'm just doing it online now. And online, it will search for all the reports automatically if I have access. If my user doesn't have access, I need admin rights, and there's a separate mode for that. But let's just keep it simple. I'm just going to select this one workspace, and it will basically find just what I had offline. It will find those reports, but I don't have to download them. That's the benefit, basically. Here I can also add local files, analyze in Excel. I can just drag and drop them in case I want to. So, but let's just run this and see how we can clean it up online. So I'm running it, and now we have, with what we started with at the beginning, right, 50% basically is unused. That's what we should get. So it's reading those reports, and it also, whenever it does something online, it only reads the metadata of all the models and the reports. You can see it's exactly what we had before, this 49-51 split. And now if I want to remove something, it can write to the XMLA endpoint. Woo, risky business, but yeah, if you want to do that, you can do it from within the tool, and you get a warning here, because once you do this, you cannot download the dataset anymore. But yeah, in most cases, it was already modified by XMLA before, if you're doing that probably. But so basically, I'm doing this now online, right? And then I get the results. Look at this left bottom here, 49-51, right? So now it's writing to the XMLA endpoint. It usually it's a little faster, but I don't know. We have to wait a little bit maybe. But this will update immediately because we have this heavy calculated column, right? And this will get out of the unused, and it will increase my use to like 60 something once it's finished, obviously. Any questions so far? Yes, here, please.
If I have in different workspace
Yeah.
different reports,
Yeah.
he also scan that reports?
If you have, so in this mode,
Yeah.
I'm not an admin.
No?
Only if I have access. You need to have at least contributor so we can read the metadata.
Okay, dus you always need in a workspace with reports, they have connect in another workspace with your data model,
Yes.
minimal contributor, right?
Minimum contributor, and yeah, you just have to, so you can give yourself access to all the workspaces, but that's usually not going to happen. So you need to know approximately where those reports are. If you're an admin, it will find everything, even if it's in a personal workspace, but then you need to be a tenant admin.
Okay.
And a lot of times that's also not possible.
That
So,
was,
yeah.
that is a lot of time what you...
Yes, thank you. So, see, 64%, so we already halfway there. We have 5 minutes, so that should work out. So because of that calculated column, it updates the analysis. So, but what about this now? This was something we've been struggling with for a while, but so we cannot do this in Measure Killer automatically yet. It will come at some point, but we're going to use our friends tool, Tabular Editor 3. because here I have the M code, but how do I write to the model in the service? Well, tabular editor comes in handy. I connect to the model, right? I'm sure you guys know this. This is like the connection string for the workspace. So every workspace, every premium workspace has go to premium. I get this little server address or workspace connection. That's what I connect to. Also, it runs through my Microsoft account. And then I get this data set. I'm going to connect to the data set. And then I have my tables here. So now in here, I can plug in my M code. So we're going to do it just like in Power Query before. I go into partitions. I just open up. It's just one partition. I just copy paste the M code. We're going to do title principles. Title principles. Yep. Then we had the title that was completely unused, but then the basic info. I'm gonna put that in. Yeah, and the titles was completely unused, so I'm just gonna delete that right away. That was the titles, right? Let's just see. Yeah, titles is unused. So I'm just gonna remove that here. So then I need to do one more thing. I need to right-click, update the table schema. That's basically where it's parsing the M code, and it checks basically what just disappeared with the updated M code. And then it's just saying, oh yeah, it's removing this, great. And now I can save this to the model. So now I'm saving it to, I'm doing everything by writing to the model in the service. And the cool thing is, once this is done, just takes a few seconds. Once this is done, I can update this here. And see, we had 64%. Now I'm going to run it, and I hope, oh yeah, here we go. It's pulling everything. It's just refreshing everything. And boom, 100% used. Exactly what we did before without even opening Power BI Desktop. So yeah, if you cannot download it, it's more tricky, and maybe you have to pay for some licenses, but it's possible. It's even possible that you can do it, right? That's already something. So any last questions? Otherwise, you have a question?
Can you export the results?
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. So we can also export to the whole, actually it gives you more. You can export to JSON and to Excel. Just very briefly, I'm gonna do the Excel. You basically, oh, I don't have Excel on my VM, sorry. But you get what is in the main window, just a lot of more things. You have all the DAX expressions of all the measures in calculated columns. You even have visual IDs, a lot of, people use this for documenting their model and reports. So that's what you can use the export for. One more question? Yeah, there's a tip. She knows the tool better than me, apparently. I forgot to mention it, sorry. Yes, there's filter unused, then you get rid of all the green stuff. You only see what is left. And in our case, it's just the report level measures because, like I said one time, we don't really care about them. We cannot really remove them anyway. So, thank you so much. I hope you're gonna give it a chance, and yeah. Oh, by the way, so I also have this. If you want to add me on LinkedIn or something, or yeah, feel free to reach out. Thank you so much.